This evening, we're very fortunate to have Lauren Alvarez with us. Lauren is from Jenks Public Schools, and one of our staff, Erin Parks, got to know her while she was working there, and we've been blessed greatly by the sessions that Lauren has provided for us. At our last conference that OFN provided in September, she provided a session on parenting the anxious child, and then did a version of it for teachers back in the summer. But tonight, she'll be talking about the 5 love languages of children. And so, Lauren, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little more, I'd be glad for you to do that. And we look forward to hearing from you this evening. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Joni. I'm just so impressed with all the things that Oklahoma Family Network is doing. I was actually just on their Facebook page tonight, kind of looking at some of the upcoming events, because as a school counselor, I'll even go and refer some of my families at school that I think would benefit from their programs. It's just a great resource, and they've really taken advantage of trying to reach as many people as possible through digital virtual conferences and things like that. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here tonight. So I'm Lauren Alvarez. I have been doing parent education for over 18 years, but shifted into school counseling and working with children. I'm an elementary school counselor by day at Jenks Northwest Elementary. And then I'm an LPC candidate. So I've just finished an additional master's and have been approved to see clients and things. So I really love the idea of just supporting families in any way, shape, or form. If that's through educational kinds of things, that's great. If that's through therapy, that's great. But I do have my favorites. I have my favorite topics that I feel are just foundational. So I did talk about anxiety, parenting the anxious child, and helping the anxious child. And if I could make sure that every single parent had a book when they left the hospital with their child, it would be the 5 love languages of children. You might be familiar with some of the other books that they have written that around the 5 love languages. So there's just the 5 love languages. That was kind of the first thing that Gary Chapman and Dr. Ross Campbell came up with. And that basically was designed for couples. So in a romantic relationship, how can you use knowledge of the 5 love languages to love each other effectively? Then after so many people kept coming up to them at conferences and, when they would be presenting on that topic and then just saying, hey, what can I do for my child? I've got a child who does this, I have a child who does that. And it made them realize there's a real need for parents to have an understanding of how they can use the same knowledge about 5 love languages and have it work with children. And so they dug deep and did a lot of reading and researching and came up with the 5 love languages of children. Now, of course, teenagers are a very special, very sometimes frustrating kind of child. They think they are a grown-up and they are not, but they are growing independent and having all sorts of developmental changes. So they wrote a different book, 5 Love Languages of Teenagers. So if you have a child in that range, the principles I'm going to talk about tonight can still be helpful, but they have some additional layers because teenagers are different. I mean, a 12-year-old is very different from a 15-year-old. So although it seems like these days, children are growing up faster and faster. And then the newest one, which I haven't read yet, I'm looking forward to it, is the 5 love languages of apology. So using strategies where I can apologize, but if I apologize in a way that my child or my partner feels like it's an authentic apology, that will go a lot further. So they have great resources. So anything related to the 5 love languages, I highly recommend it. And it's not very complicated. It's just simple, good information. I've used this with all 4 of my children. So my kiddos are 11 years old, 20, 23, and 25. And my family background is I was married for 15 years to my 3 older sons, my 20, 23, and 25-year-olds. We were married for 15 years, and with a combination of mental illness and addiction, ended in divorce. So I was a single mom for almost 5 years. I didn't have as much time with the children. They had a big emotional wound from, their parents breaking up. They were only 3 years old and 1st grade and 3rd grade at the time. So for me, I was so thankful for this information because it helped me be so purposeful in the way that I showed them love and showed them attention, because I didn't have as much time, I didn't have as much energy, and I could be very strategic. I truly feel like the principles of the five love languages are one of the key factors that helped my boys get through their grief process and to the other side of divorce as really well-rounded young men who still had a connection with me and felt loved, even in a very difficult time. I'm also remarried, so being able to apply these strategies in my remarriage and also with my daughter has been really helpful. So I hope you can see how much I love this stuff. You might have heard of the one for adults, but a lot of people don't know that there is one for children. So here's a quote straight from the book. Nearly all parents deeply love their children, yet not all children feel that unconditional love and care. Why this contradiction? Often parents assume that their kids just know that I love them, or that if I say I love you, that will be enough. And I would have you think, growing up, now that you're an adult and you can look back at the things, your relationship with your parents, how many of you actually felt love? So there's a difference. There's knowing in my head, yes, I know my parents loved me. They provided me shelter and they, kept me alive and bought me clothing. And, I know that they love me. Do you know it down here? Did you feel that in your heart? A lot of times we don't have that memory. Some of us also had very difficult backgrounds with our parents, but I think there's such a frustrating disconnect where as a parent, we're like, I love my kids. Why can't they see that? Because maybe we're not speaking and showing that love in their love language. So when I learned these principles, it really helped me as a parent to make sure my kids knew they felt love. They didn't just know it in their head, they felt it in their heart. So here's why the five love languages are important. All parents love their kids. Many adults, they only speak one or two love languages. So a lot of children, if they don't have that same love language, they grow up feeling not loved. For example, my dad was a big physical touch guy. We roughhouse played and all that kind of stuff. But also he was pretty harsh with his words. My love languages are physical touch. So I felt a strong connection with my dad with that because he would wrestle, always running around chasing us through the house. But my other love language is words of affirmation. So his very critical, lots of harsh criticism, that really hurt my heart. My mom is just not a hugger. So I still, even to this day, me trying to give her a hug she's just like stiff, like, ugh. And so I didn't always feel as strong of a connection with her. Now, she did all sorts of acts of service for us, like helping us and driving us places and the carpooling and the cooking and all the things. But there was just always that kind of distance. We missed each other. And she would be very frustrated and just didn't have these kind of principles. I wish that we both had known this when we were younger. Thing is, if you're not speaking your child's love language, they don't feel loved, even though you do love them. So understanding the love languages really helps us love our children effectively. I know you love them. You wouldn't even be here taking this workshop on a Thursday night if you didn't love them. I want my kiddos to feel loved. The other issue is many adults only speak one or two love languages, and we usually try to show love. It's really easy for us to show love in our love language. What if that's different than your child's? Well, you're trying to show them love because if people did this for me, I would feel loved. So I'm going to do that for my child. And they don't. We just miss each other. We barely passing each other. So that's why I really like this information, because I felt all of my sons initially, especially when I was a single mom, they all had different love languages. I could be, and some of theirs were very different than mine. I could be very purposeful in how I showed them individual attention so that I was developing those individual relationships with them. My daughter, we're very much alike. It's physical touch and words of affirmation. So it's really easy for us to interact with each other and feel close and feel that close connection because we're both very much alike in that way. So Let me kind of explain this a little bit more if you've never ever heard of what in the world is a love language. Okay. So there are 5 ways that children and basically humans express and receive love, according to Dr. Gary Chapman and oh goodness, my brain is just gone blank. They are physical touch, so those hugs and cuddles and kisses. Words of affirmation, so that means my kind words, my congratulations, my words that recognize and show how proud I am of you. Quality time, spending that uninterrupted time together. Gifts, which is little tokens of our affection and little trinkets and gifts on birthdays and things like that. And then acts of service. So this is the helping stuff, you helping me, me helping my kids. So the deal is, typically everyone has a primary, like their favorite love language, and they also have a secondary love language that's also means a lot to them. If I, as a parent, I know my love language is physical touch. Well, it started out as physical touch and words of affirmation. As I've gotten busier, mine have changed a little bit. I really like acts of service because time is so important to me because I don't have a lot of time. I'm a full-time school counselor, part-time therapist, do some teaching things on the side. So if you can help me do something and that saves me time, that really makes a difference for me. That used to not even matter to me. So sometimes things can change over time. So as we go through in more detail about these different love languages, kind of think to yourself, which one do I think I am? Which one do I think my child is? And, are we missing the mark? I'm going to give you all sorts of clues. Plus, I'm going to send all sorts of handouts. I'm a total nerd, so I have all sorts of things already scanned that I'll send to Joni to pass on to everyone who's come to the workshop to give you more information. All right, so let's kind of break these down. For physical touch, parents in all cultures recognize the importance of touching children. My husband, current husband, is from South America. Very, very lovey, touchy, sit close together culture. Hugs and kisses are the most common ways of speaking this love language, but there are a lot of other ways you can show this to your children too. Snuggling, story time in your lap, not just sitting next to them and reading a story, but having them close to you and you've got your arms around them, reading a story to them, holding hands while you're walking. I love that my 11-year-old daughter still likes to hold hands in public with me. I'm hoping those days are not numbered, but so far so good. Rough house play. So maybe you have a child who's not really into hugs or snuggles, but they love to wrestle and horseplay, or they love some good back scratches or a piggyback ride. All of those are physical touch. And so in adults, sometimes that can also be intimate touch is really important to us. And we feel loved when we have intimate touch. It's not just these things. There's a few other things. The reality is some studies find parents only touch their kids when it's necessary. We're so busy. So I'm going to, I'm touching them when I'm buckling them in the car seat, or, hey, we've got to get our teeth brushed, or I'm going to do a quick tuck you in at night, or I'm going to tie your shoes or help you get dressed. Those are the times when physical touch just is going to happen just by doing those daily things of life. If we aren't thoughtful and purposeful about working in physical touch into our other parts of the day, not just when it's necessary, we're really missing out on that. Physical touch is healthy for boys and girls. Some people worry that, well, I don't want to hug my boys too much, or, or maybe they've gone through puberty and you're just like, oh, they're not my little kid anymore. And I feel weird having my daughter sit in my lap or something like that. Physical touch is needed all the way through life. You can transition what some of it is, but don't just give it up. My love language is physical touch, one of them. And I remember when I went down to South America and met my husband's family for the first time. Thank goodness my love language was physical touch, because, oh my gosh, I would have really had a hard time meeting his family if I was not comfortable with physical touch. So here in the United States, a lot of times maybe we will, if we have a couch that's designed that could fit 4 people, we're just going to have 2 people on the couch. There, they had a couch. They actually had a chair that was designed for 1 person, and there were 3 of us sitting on the couch, sitting on the chair, me in the middle, his mom sitting on one arm of the chair, his sister sitting on the other arm of the chair. There was no personal space, but I was okay with it because I'm okay with physical touch. That's one of my love languages. So we have to work those things in. Sometimes as kids get older, or maybe when they start school, they're too embarrassed for you to kiss them in front of their friends. They call it an affection resistant stage, but you can still work in physical touch and have it not be hugs and kisses. High fives, when you're walking past them, just bumping them on the shoulder. I always used to bonk into my boys when I'd just be walking past them in the kitchen. Rough house play, playing sports with them. Those are all ways that without a hug and without a kiss, I can still work in physical touch. And kids have unique differences. All of my children, actually, one of their love languages is physical touch. So that was nice for me because my love language is physical touch. But there can be unique preferences. For example, one of my sons loved it when I would put him to bed and I would tickle him, and he would just love that, and he'd hide under his covers and think that was so great. My other son, who loved physical touch, if I tickled him, it ticked him off. He was not okay with that. So I had to be thoughtful of, I could tickle Colby, Dylan, that's actually going to make him mad. So each person has their own preferences. So just realize, if you have a child that doesn't really want hugs and kisses, you can still work in physical touch into their day. All right. Then we have words of affirmation. Words of affirmation in communicating love, we're using our words to communicate that love. Words of affection, I love you, you're my sweetheart. Words of praise and encouragement, words that give positive guidance. All of these are ways of speaking their love language. I love you, honey, great catch, you can do it, don't give up, you're terrific. Notes in the lunchbox. I remember I would find cards that were sometimes on clearance, or just some funny, goofy card at the dollar store. Didn't have to be expensive. And I had a drawer just full of these random, weird gift cards. And so typically about once a month, I would put a card in my son's lunchbox. And they were usually funny because they were very much into sense of humor. And they would open it up, and at first I was worried, like, oh my gosh, what are their friends going to think? Are they going to think it's weird? And that's the first thing they would compliment when they came home. Oh my gosh, mom, everybody laughed. That card was so weird and funny. Thank you. That was a way for me to show them words of affirmation when I wasn't even with them. There's another phrase. One thing I like about you is, got a story behind this phrase. Words of encouragement and affirmation can be incredibly powerful, especially if that's your child's love language. All children need words of affirmation, but if that's your child's love language, that is like vitamins in liquid gold for their hearts. So one mom that was taking a step parenting class, it was a couple taking a step parenting class that I was teaching. We were talking about different ways to work in affection in the 5 love languages. And the dad stopped for a minute and he said, so his wife, the stepmom for his son, she had a habit. Every single day when she got in the car, before she even turned on the car to start the car to go to take the kids to school, she had 2 children of her own and her stepson. Before she even started the car, she had this habit, and she would say, one thing I like about you is, and each child, she would tell them something she liked about them. Then she'd start the car, go to school. Just an absolute automatic. They did this every day, just like brushing their teeth. This guy, his son, her stepson, had really struggled. The parents had a very, very difficult divorce, lots of fighting, lots of going back to court, lots of him being involved in the middle of his parents fighting. He had been going to a therapist for 3 years, and he was just 6 years old, and he was a tough kid. He had a lot of behavior problems. 2 months of being in the same house with his stepmom and this habit of hers, the dad said that did more for him than 3 years of therapy. His little heart was starving for words of affirmation. All he heard a lot of times was just the angry, hateful words that were going back and forth between his parents, or they would deliver messages through him, or all sorts of different things that had really kind of hurt his little heart. Being able to sit under that kind of love that really helped him, it made him feel better. It made him not need to seek attention by getting in trouble all the time. So the dad was just blown away, and it was just a simple habit that she did. Having a special routine at bedtime, like a special song or special I love yous. Those can also be really powerful ways of showing your words of affirmation. I know when we divorced, and I was a single mom for almost 5 years, the boys went back and forth between my house and their dad's house. And he had a very different parenting style and all the things. But one of my sons, my youngest son, he is very much words of affirmation. And I had a special song that I sang to him every night. But when he would go over to dad's, he would have a really hard time at bedtime. I miss mommy. I want mommy. Well, really, what he missed was my bedtime routine, which was a little song from that book, I Love You Forever. I just made it into a song and I would sing, I love you forever. I like you for always. As long as I'm living, my Colby, you'll be. And that was just part of our routine. And he loved that. Well, because he was having such a hard time with bedtime at dad's house, I said, well, what if I just sing him the song? So when it was bedtime over there, dad would give me a quick call. I would sing him the song over the phone and he would be able to go to sleep. When I started dating my now husband, and we would be out on a date while the boys would be at their dad's, dad would call, I would sing the song and go back to my date. That was such an important part for him as he was trying to heal from his parents' divorce, that helped him kind of get through those things, those times where it was a little bit more difficult. Simple things, everyday things can make a big difference. And this is another important thing. Don't just praise results. Encourage effort. It's not like, oh, you had the best art project. It could be something like, man, I really like how you kept working on your math, even though it was hard. We're encouraging their effort, because if we aren't careful, sometimes we can just encourage the results, and that can make it feel conditional, which means I'm only going to show you positive words when you are doing the best. Well, none of us can do our best all the time. So really encouraging that effort makes a difference. When your child is upset, sharing reasons why you're proud of them. Talk about him or her to other people in positive ways too. So we have to be careful. If they're overhearing us talking about them, that can really hurt. But if they overhear us talking positively about them, oh, that means so much to them. Another thing is, you do have to correct children. There's no way that you can avoid correcting children. And guess what we use? Our words a lot of times to correct children. If you have a child whose love language is words of affirmation, you really have to keep that balanced. So if I know I had to do a lot of correction, then I'm going to make sure that I'm going to put in 2 to 5 specific positive things that I say about them before the day's over. I'm just going to balance it out. Really avoid shaming statements when you correct them. So if we are correcting them with our words in a way that makes them feel bad, that to them hurts 10 times more. Some children, you can correct them with your words and they're like, whatever. For a child whose love language is words of affirmation, that sinks down like a knife in their heart. So really be cautious of how you use your words to correct a child in this way. That does not mean you don't correct them. Children need to be corrected. What it means is you have to be more thoughtful about how you say stuff. You have to be very thoughtful about your tone of voice and things. And another good rule of thumb is try to give at least one positive I message a day, just like that mom did. One thing I like about you is, that was a habit, that was a routine. Just saying things like, I love you just isn't enough. Saying things like, I felt so proud when I watched you run over and help your little sister when she fell down. I like seeing stuff like that. Be specific about it. Use those I messages and those specific ways of describing things, and try to make that a daily habit. So that's words of affirmation. Now, my little story here for this is one of my sons, physical touch is one of his love languages. Words of affirmation is the other. So after our daughter was born, he was the youngest. He was 9 years old when she was born. He was so excited. All the boys were so excited to have a little sister. And then when she was about a year and a half old, all of a sudden, my sweet, kind, affectionate boy, 6th grader now, just turned into this back-talking, rude kid that I had to constantly correct. I mean, it's just, Colby, hang up your back. Colby, did you do your homework? Colby, and it was just like, come on, I'm taking care of a little baby and you are driving me crazy. So one night when I was putting him to bed, I said, what is going on with you? It's like you're always causing problems or talking in a rude way to me. What's happened? You've changed so much. And his response was, well, all you ever do is boss me around. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to listen to how I talk to you over the next 3 days, and I'm going to see if that's true. Boy, did I put my foot in my mouth. Boy, did I don't regret that I said that, but boy, was that, he was right. Maybe if in a day I said 20 things to him, at least 15 of those were a command. Colby, hang up your backpack. Colby, did you do your homework? Colby, Colby, Colby. And it was just, I was barking these little commands because guess who was really busy? I was super busy taking care of a baby. And I had also at nighttime kind of cut out their bedtime routine. I was so busy putting a baby to sleep and nursing the baby and changing the baby that it was kind of like, okay, good night, love you guys. And I would just send them to bed. His little heart was getting emptier and emptier and emptier. Of course, I loved him. I was still doing things for him and all those things, but I wasn't showing him love in the same way. As a matter of fact, I was using his love language words, and I was using it in a negative way. So not only was his heart feeling a little empty, I was hurting him. Not trying to, but I was. So I had my little reminder. Okay, Lauren, you know what to do. Let's start doing that again. So I totally changed, not totally changed, but I really purposefully changed and said, okay, I'm going to tell him at least 3 positive, specific things a day. And anytime I have to correct him, I'm going to make sure before the day's over, for every time I correct him, I'm going to say something kind or nice to him. I had to watch my tone. And also at night, I worked back in his 15 minutes and like, okay, baby's going to have to wait, or Papa, you're going to have to take care of her because I'm going to go do the boys' bedtime. And I would work in that physical touch and scratch his back and talk to him. Within a month and a half, he was back to my same old kid because I filled him back up on purpose. I had to be thoughtful about it, but I filled him back up on purpose, totally back to a new kid. So those words of affirmation, again, you just have to really be careful of the balance. They're very sensitive to how you say things. Okay. Now, quality time is another love language. Quality time conveys the message, you are important. I like being with you. This is where we're spending specific time with our kids. And yes, if you have more than one child, you can't spend all your time just individually. There are a lot of things that you need to do just as a family. But if you have a child whose love language is quality time, trying to carve out some special time just for them is important. Date nights, going on campouts, just taking one child with you for errands if you can do that. Carving out special time during bedtime routine. So I had about 15 minutes per child that I would do. And one of my sons, I could not shorten his time. The other 2 could be okay with 5. I could not shorten his time because that was his time. He didn't have to share it with anybody. Friday night movie nights. One of my friends, they have a Friday night tradition where they pull out their sleeper sofa and they have their Friday night movie nights before. And now they have some nice reclining chairs. And so the kids take turns picking the movie, and that is just what they do. As a matter of fact, she tries to avoid having the children go spend the night at anyone else's house on Friday night because that's their family night. Doing chores together side by side, just spending that time together. If you have a very intense schedule and you can't be just spontaneous or you're exhausted, schedule it. That's okay. My uncle has 6 children, 5 sons and 1 daughter. His daughter's love language, quality time. So he had a special, unique routine with her. Every Saturday morning, they went and got breakfast. That was their time. And if it was 30 minutes or if it was an hour, that was their time. Sometimes they had to do that really early. If that meant they had extra sports activities that day, but that was her time. And that made her feel loved by her daddy. But he had to schedule it. He was a doctor. I mean, the 6 kids were all involved in activities. So that sometimes you can do that. Another love language is gifts. So this is not me going and buying my children everything. That's not what this is all about. This is, when I'm giving a gift, it's a powerful expression of love. The size of the gift is not important. It could be something as simple as a card. It can be something as simple as one of my sons loved these really specific mechanical pencils. So every now and then when I was at Walmart, I'd go grab a couple of those mechanical pencils and he loved that. Or I'd get him extra pencil lead. All of them went through a phase where they really liked Beanie Babies So maybe if I happen to be out and I saw a Beanie Baby and I just happened to grab that, and it might be waiting for them surprise on their pillow or something like that. So it was just little tokens, little things that showed that I was thinking about you when we weren't together. Mailing a gift or a card can be cool, even if you live in the same house. Plop a little card in the mail, have it come to them, and that's really exciting. Remembering special occasions. These are kids that if you forget their special day, it really hurts. Other kids are like, ah, it's no big deal. But you know, this can really hurt them. This isn't a bribe. So it's not like, well, if you do this, I'll get you that. And it should not take the place of the other love languages. Because yes, if you're not careful, and then we think, oh, their love language is gifts, so I'm just going to constantly buy them stuff, that can then create someone who has a problem being materialistic or demanding and thinking they should get everything that they ask for. But this is more those little things that show that you're thinking of them. It's also important that you don't just, you pay attention to the kind of things that they like. I know that I used to receive gifts from a certain family member who shall not be named, and she would always get me these flowery picture frames. There's not a single picture frame in my house that's got carved out flowers on it. That's what she liked, not what I liked. So when I would get a gift like that, yes, the thought counted, but is she even paying attention? You know, and so literally, and then I'd feel bad, like I need to use this gift because you know, she bought it for me, but it wasn't even like me. I've always been a tomboy. I like simple, you know, wooden things, and that's always been my style. So to get me things that she loved, which were things that were all sorts of flowery things and little miniature trinkets and dolls and stuff like that, that just wasn't things I liked. So when she would give a gift, but it wasn't a gift that matched me, then it was kind of like, it would be frustrating. But I was still thankful, but it was different. So you know, notice the things that they like and pay attention to that. They love making wish lists too. So now some more ideas. Sometimes carrying around little snacks so you can give it as a treat when you're heading out. Making cards together, hiding a little gift in their bag, keeping a box of inexpensive gifts that they can choose from as a little reward, creating a secret drawer where they can keep their special treasures, you know, small rocks and feathers, or they love little boxes to keep their little collections. If you have a child whose love language is gifts, garage sales are traumatic for them. What, you want me to sell that? But that's the stuffed animal you got when we went to Silver Dollar City. I can't get rid of that. There's a connection to all of those gifts. One of my sons, his love language is definitely gifts, and I have nailed it. So he lives in Boston now. He's coming home for Christmas. He's coming home with a suitcase. He can't bring back a bunch of stuff. He has had more fun. So we created a little wish list together, and I've been paying attention all year long to the things that he mentions that he likes. I actually, in my phone, on my notes section, when I see something and I think they like, I actually put Dylan gift ideas, and I just put it right in there so I can always pull something from that. So instead of him getting things at Christmas, I've been buying him something online and having it mailed to him and delivered to him about every 2 weeks. We've been doing this since October, and not all of them are big things, you know, they're little things. He loves it. The day his gift comes in the mail, he instantly takes pictures of it, shows me, oh, Mom, this is great. He's 23 years old. Boy, does he feel loved. And he can't even, I mean, we're thousands of miles away from each other. So it's really been a neat, fun connection for us. And he was always one during college that if he wasn't there, you know, maybe randomly once every 6 weeks, I might just have something just surprise show up in his mailbox. He loved it. Other boys are like, for him, absolutely loved it. So that could be a way to stay connected with your kiddo. Now, the final one is acts of service. So this is us helping them, doing a project, or helping them clean something up, or helping them with their homework. They want you to help them with stuff. So this is doing something that you know your child would appreciate. Here's the deal. Parenting, it's a giant act of service. What are we doing? We are cooking, we are cleaning, we are feeding, we are driving, we are doing all of the things that parents do just to keep their kids alive. But if that's the only way that we're showing love to all of our kids, they don't necessarily give us credit for that. So you can't just substitute regular parenting stuff for acts of service. This is doing something a little different. Maybe you make them a special dinner. Maybe you go out and practice sports with them. Maybe you help them with an issue or solve a problem. Maybe you help them fix something. Maybe you do a project together. One of my right now, my daughter and I are actually redoing her room together. So I took her to Home Goods. That was a mistake. Not really. It was so fun. But she's just had so much fun, like us working together on this little project. And we're going to be painting next weekend. And she's just so excited and can't wait to go to the store to pick out the paint together. And we're going to do that project together. She has talked more about this than anything I've done in a really long time. Now, sometimes it could be cleaning up your kid's room or making them a special breakfast. That's great. But here's a few little things to be thoughtful about. If it's an act of service, don't do for your children all the time what they can do for themselves. For example, yes, it's an act of service to clean your child's room. If you're cleaning their room for them all the time when they really can do that for themselves, that is creating someone who's too dependent on you. You know, maybe they could become lazy for us doing all these things for them, then they become that they need us. This, on some kinds of things, you know, you're going to do that occasionally. So I know sometimes it'd be like, the kids would get overwhelmed with their room and they'd be, you know, have their regular routine of cleaning up, but maybe they needed help sorting something. You're like, and you could say, hey, you know what, let me do that with you, you know, and doing that together as a project. So they're still doing their responsibilities, and doing that occasionally would be great. But there's these little extra special things can be very helpful. I know for all of my sons, as they've gotten older, one of the things that every single one of them mentioned was when I help them move. Moving is huge. I helped my one son move to North Carolina. I helped my other son move to Boston, and my other son moved to Dallas. So it was very labor intensive, but all of them are like, gosh, Mom, thank you so much. That was so helpful. And it really stood out to them because it was a big sacrifice for me. I'm very busy, and I took time off from work and all those things, and actually had to take some time off without pay. You only get three personal days as a teacher. But for them, that really made such a difference for them. So acts of service can be really helpful. All right, how are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing well. Now, here, some of you are like, okay, I think I might know what my child is. Maybe I think I might know what I am. So I'm going to send these links to you. There are actual quizzes online that you can do. So I'm hoping, let me see. Hopefully you can see this 5 Love Languages of Children website. Can you guys see that? I don't know if anyone can. Yes. Okay. I got a thumbs up.
Yes,
Now,
we can.
okay, perfect. On the 5 Love Languages of website, there are quizzes. So if you just click on quizzes, and there's love language quizzes. So if I click on love languages, I can start the quiz. There's also quizzes on here that are for that kids can answer themselves, that teenagers can answer themselves. But this just helps you be able to determine which one you are. So you're taking it as an adult, they are the teenager, or I'm taking the quiz for my child. Maybe I ask them the questions, or I answer how I think they would answer. And that can tell you, oh yeah, you have a love language of physical touch. It just helps you know what your love language is. You can also help figure out your child's love language. And there's some other surveys I'll send you, by just observing how they express love to you and others. My daughter, all the time, Mom, I love you. You're the best mom on all the planets, which do I love hearing. I'm hoping she still says that through her teenage years. How do they show love to you? Do they love to come up and give you hugs and wrestle and snuggle? You know, just notice what they do for you. Do they always love to help? You know, and sometimes when a little kid wants to help you with all the chores around the house, you're like, oh, it would just be easier if I did it myself. That they're showing that they want to either spend that time with you, quality time, or those acts of service help you. Listen to what they ask about the most. Will you play with me? Will you read to me? Will you help me with this? You know, that can give you some clues. Notice what they complain about the most. You never spend time with me. You spend time with brother and you didn't do that with me. You know, why did he get a present and I didn't get one? Sometimes what they complain about shows what they really like. Sometimes you can give your child a choice between 2 options. Do you want to play a game, or do you want to go buy a book? And a big one, this is a huge one. Ask them how they know you love them. How do you know Mama loves you? Oh, you hug me. You're always chasing me. You give me kisses. You make me the best dinners. Just ask them, how do you know I love you? And that can give you clues to what they notice that you do. That's really important to them. Now, one of the handouts that I will send you guys, it's actually a whole little survey kit it's in here with a lot of other things. Let's see if it's on here. Anyway, I will send it to you, but it has a whole, there it is. It has a whole little observation checklist that you can kind of spend, like, look maybe a week per child and start to notice the things that they say. It even has a little quiz that you give them a choice between two options. And that could be a great way to figure out what your child's love language is. Here's the deal. What if their love language is different than yours? You've been showing them love. Show them love in their love language on purpose. That is absolutely important. Then this is what it does, is it fills their emotional tank. So according to Dr. Chapman and a lot of other people you might have heard, that really filled my bucket, or heard some of those kinds of phrases. Dr. Chapman really talks about a child's emotional tank. By speaking your child's own love language, you can fill his emotional tank. It's like a bank account with love. When your child feels love, he's much easier to discipline and train than when his emotional tank is running near empty. I saw this with my son in 6th grade. His emotional tank was empty. Mama was so busy taking care of baby and barking commands at him that I was draining his heart. And you know what? He became a pain. He became difficult to parent. He became defiant. He became uncooperative. He would forget things on purpose. And here I was chasing all the behavior, like chasing after the behavior. When I stopped, listened to what he said, paid attention, and then on purpose started saying the kind words, balancing out the correction with the positive words, doing his bedtime again, and making sure that I did not give that up because he needed that time. That filled up his emotional tank, and guess who became easier to parent? He did. So that's why I love the 5 love languages. It's preventive. If I do things on purpose, and you can never do things perfectly, but if I'm doing things on purpose and my kids' emotional tanks are full, they're a lot easier to be around. All right. And that has proven true for me. I found, for example, the boys, when I was a single mom, and those first few years were pretty tough. So let's say they get off the bus and I could tell they just had a rough day. So let's say my middle son just had a rough day. He loved physical touch. And I think I can see he's had a rough day. His shoulders are slumped. He's in a bad mood and all that. I would just start working in physical touch, and he wouldn't even know that I was doing it on purpose. Maybe I'm asking about how his day is and I'm rubbing his shoulders. Maybe I sat right up next to him on the couch while he's watching his cartoons. Maybe I was scratching his head every time that he walked by. Maybe while he was doing his math homework, I was rubbing his back and talking about that. Maybe I went and got him his special favorite blanket and put it in the dryer, and it was nice and warm and soft and cozy, and he loved that. He had no idea that on purpose I was putting in a little deposit here and a little deposit there. 2 hours, he'd be back to being in a great mood. And that was a kid who was going through a lot. When I could do things on purpose in his favorite love language, it could turn a day around. But what if their love language is not your love language? Learn what makes them tick and do that. Save yourself some time by being strategic about how you spend time with them. So every child needs lots of doses of their primary love language, which is their kind of their favorite thing. And then you sprinkle in the other 4. It's not like, oh, if they like physical touch, then I'm never going to worry about my words or helping them or giving them gifts. I'm just going to give them hugs. You need to do a little bit of everything, but make sure that you are using their primary love language, on a regular basis. Before the age of 4, use all the love languages generously, because a lot of times their love language isn't really set until they're about over 4 years old. They can definitely start to show some preferences, but they need it in all the love languages. And the biggest thing for prevention purposes, try to begin and end their day in their love language. So if their love language is physical touch, gently scratching their back awake. If their love language is words of affirmation, make sure you have a compliment on their outfit when they come down, or, something that you noticed about them. If their words are acts of service, something as simple as making their breakfast every day can be really helpful, or packing their lunch or something like that. If their love language is gifts, You can't necessarily start and end their day with a gift, but maybe that's something that you work into their week, some little special trinket, or maybe daily they get a little note in their lunchbox, or something like that. That could be helpful. But beginning and ending the day with their love language, in their love language, not mine, the parent who's doing acts of service all day in their love language, so powerful. And I have used this. And I will be honest, I was afraid to have teenagers. When their dad and I divorced, I was terrified. I thought we have just ruined their life. They will never be okay. Because I was able to use these principles, and I was able to make deposits and make deposits and make deposits and make deposits. We had a good relationship. Did we have a perfect relationship? No. But when they were teenagers, because we had this strong connection, because of the foundation of our love languages and me doing things on purpose, and them, really feeling loved, when I did need to correct them, they could receive it. And what I can seriously count on one hand how many big arguments we had between all 5 boys all the years. Does that mean it was because of this. They could receive it. I've also learned other parenting strategies and effective communication, and I was very thoughtful about consequences and used a lot of parenting with love and logic and those things. So it wasn't just the 5 love languages, but this made them feel loved. And I remember one time, one of my oldest sons saying, "Mom, I know you love me, okay?" It's almost like, "Okay, Mom, enough." But he said it with a smile. So this can make all the difference. For that child that you find really frustrating, who is very different from you, doing little things on purpose can make all the difference in the world. So another thing that I'm going to send you is there are examples of like how to work physical touch into your morning routine, how to work physical touch into your daily experiences. Things like give a quick tickle, any parental hug or kissing, playing a physical game like basketball or football, letting them sit in your lap, recognizing them, they're poking you as their desire to have a hug, bumping shoulders, giving a piggyback ride up to bed. All of these are like super simple little practical ways to work in physical touch. So this one workbook is really cool. It's the 5 Love Languages of Children workbook. It has some really great ideas and strategies on things that you can do for that. So that, we just need we need a cheat sheet. We need a good, helpful, practical list that can help us. And here's again, like I said, when children feel loved, they are more responsive to your guidance and your discipline. They'll be more likely to listen and cooperate without resentment. We have wisdom that we want to share with our kids. Wouldn't it be nice if they want to hear it? That would be great. I do know that some of you are going to have other difficulties. If we have a child that falls into addiction, or is really struggling with a mental illness and depression, or has experienced some trauma, I do know that, just me showing them love in their love language is not going to be the cure for everything, but it is absolutely vital. It's almost, I feel like they're not eating nutritious food. That's how foundational this is. And once we get used to doing this, it becomes second nature, and it just becomes a part of our life. It's preventive. A full emotional take doesn't misbehave as often to get attention. I teach this to teachers. We tell teachers all the time, if you don't have a relationship with the child, they're not going to do what you say. They're not going to work hard for you. They're not going to try difficult things. They're going to make your life miserable. You can't just work on your classroom management plan with all the rules, and here's what we do, and here's how we do things in class. They don't care if they don't think you care. So if it works for teachers who aren't even related to kids, how much more would it be working for us? It helps you be strategic with your limited time. It helps kids heal from difficult events too. When we talk about an emotional bucket, an emotional tank, difficult traumatic life experiences put holes in their bucket to where stuff starts pouring out a little bit. And some of those holes can be big. Divorce, that was a big hole in my kid's bucket. Me being purposeful and strategic and learning and trying and adjusting and growing and taking care of myself too, it helped heal and close up some of those holes, and made such a big difference in their lives. Now, there's also the other side of love languages. for as much as that love language can fill their bucket, if that love language is used in the wrong way, in a negative way, I call it the dark side of that love language. It can hurt. One of my sons, you can correct him. Okay, no problem. Literally, he doesn't take it as criticism. He's just good with it. Great. But for him, physical touch was a big one for him. And he really liked active service. So he could handle any kind of correction. My other son, I mean, he was so defensive to correction. He's the one that I had to be very purposeful about balancing out the correction with also building in the affirmations, the positives during the day. So every love language has things to do, but the opposite of that can really not cause harm, but it just hurts. It causes some emotional hurt. So here's some tips for things to avoid. In physical touch, a lot of times, avoid physical punishments. I don't spank. I grew up in a house that spanked. It was not used well in the household that I did. My parents did the best they knew how to do with the tools they have in their toolbox. My love language is physical touch. Thankfully, my dad did a lot of roughhouse play and things like that. But when he was the punisher and he was the one that had to spank, that really impacted my relationship with him in a negative way. I sometimes was desperate when the boys were little, and I still remember the time that I spanked my son Dylan. He had on his little Thomas the Tank Engine underwear. He cried and cried and cried and cried. And then he said, "You hurt Thomas." He was so offended. And that just reaffirmed for me, it didn't mean that I couldn't have discipline. I was not going to be able to be physical with the boys, use physical punishment in any way with them, because it worked against them. So everyone can have their opinions about spanking. I'm not here to tell you what to do or what not to do. If you have a child whose physical touch is their love language, you've got to be really careful about using that in a negative way in discipline. Neglect, pulling away from physical touch after puberty. All of a sudden we're uncomfortable hugging our daughter because she has breasts now, or, our son's now taller than us and with a beard, and I feel funny hugging them. If physical touch is their thing, they need that. They need to know there's nothing to be ashamed of about their body, that I love them. So really, it's a very common thing to kind of pull away. And if you change some of that physical touch, that's fine. Just make sure that you work that physical touch in. Doing hugs before and after school can really help with learning. Sitting next to them while they're doing their homework, learning through movement, that can be a great way to impact their learning. And during discipline, in a positive way, you can actually hug them while you're correcting them. That can gentle, loving touches, instead of going up and come on, just putting your hand on their back and gently redirecting them. Those can all be great ways to use physical touch, and also some things to avoid. When it comes to words of affirmation, avoid harsh criticism, the negative reinforcement, or praise that's very conditional, that we're only rewarding them when they've won something, or they're the best, or, they got the A+, or things like that. If you have to do a verbal correction, which of course you have to do, balance it out with praise. To help with learning, lots of good job stickers, lots of, I like how hard you worked on this. Remind them of past successes can be great. And during discipline, you have to be so careful. If you yell and scream, that is going to cut through their heart. If their love language is words of affirmation. When they've messed up, correct them, but then remind them what they're proud of. You got to bring them back with that. With quality time, try to avoid long periods of time apart, or spending more time with other people than them, or spending more time with one child than them. If you have a child with special needs, they take a lot of time, and that's okay. So if you've got a child whose love language is quality time, you have a sibling, sometimes making sure you carve out that special individual time with them can be really powerful, because they're keeping score. For learning, sit with them while they're doing their homework. Just being in their presence can be great. In a discipline situation, if we isolate them as our main way of correcting that could be really hard on them too. And try to work together to solve problems can be really helpful. For gifts, really avoid missing special days. Put it in your calendar, have it blare at you, whatever it is. Don't use gifts to make up for a lack of showing them love and quality time. And in discipline, don't take away a gift as a punishment. It's to them, it literally feels like you're removing your love. So be thoughtful and wise about that. And then with acts of service, really try to avoid ignoring their requests of helping, or going and helping someone else first. Can be they keep score on that too. Be careful not to do for your children what they can do for themselves, because you don't want them to grow up, not able to take care of themselves, but you can surprise them. Avoid saying things, I'll do this for you if you'll do this for me. Or maybe you just did something for them and you're like, "Ah, I wish I didn't do that. You're not helping me." That's like saying, I wish I didn't, I regret loving you. So if we help them, but we act like it's such a burden. Yes, fine. That can be really hurtful with that. So those are just some ideas. I actually had a mom, so cool. We were doing a 5 love languages of children book study. So she created this whole chart, and it has each love language, how to communicate it, what the child will say, their actions, things they do that show you they prefer this, what to avoid, how it can impact learning, discipline, and anger. And she made a whole flow chart. So I'm going to send this to you too, which could be a good little reminder as you figure out what your child's love language is. So I will send the PowerPoint, and I'm also going to send a bunch of extra handouts that are the Oklahoma Family Network representatives will forward on to you. There are a lot of upcoming events that I'll show you here in a second for Oklahoma Family Network that take advantage of. I do know next Tuesday, I'll be teaching a workshop for them called Developing a Growth Mindset in Children. So if that's something you're interested in, you can always respond to the email for this event, and they can get you on the list for that or send you the link for that. But look at some of the things they have coming up. I think are pretty cool. I don't know what just happened there. Like they have a silent-ish Zoom night. It's a craft and a story using American Sign Language. That's going to be on Tuesday, December 14th. How cool would that be? They have a sensory Santa on December 12th. That could be something for families if you have a child who has more sensory needs or is really noise avoidance or things like that. That could be a great event for your family. And then they have this, I thought looked so powerful. I think I might attend this one. The Problem with Shame, learning how to achieve self-care that's meaningful. And that's specifically for youth ages 13 to 25. So I still, hopefully they'll let me in because I'm more than double that age, but we'll see. I'll try to pull my presenter card if you'll let me into that one, Joni. But they have a great Facebook page, and it has a lot of information on there and just great resources for families. But they've really been going gangbusters with these virtual meetings and things to help parents. Also, send in ideas about things that you would like to hear, because they're calling me all the time and saying, hey, we'd like to do a few things next semester. What do you think would be good? So tell them what you're looking for, and they'll find someone that could possibly help meet that need or create something around that. I've been really impressed with how responsive the Oklahoma Family Network is, and they've got a Facebook page, so that can keep you up to date on a lot of things. So I've thrown a lot of things out there. I always do. I cram in everything as much as I can into the hour. So Joni, you can take it from here. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. I'll let you kind of decide what to do, since we are at 7:31.
Right. Well, thank you, Lauren, so much. There aren't any questions in the chat right now. Is there anyone on that would like to ask Lauren a question? One of the things I know, I actually ran out and got my husband and said, come in here. We haven't looked at this in a really long time, because we went through the love languages at a marriage retreat, the DHS for families of kids with special needs many years ago. And they've actually just started doing those retreats again. I said, I think you need to come in here so we can hear this. So we were kind of discussing, we wondered what our kids' love languages are now that they're older, just to see if they've kind of changed.
Mine have changed.
I wondered if that's common, that people's love languages can change as they age.
I know mine definitely changed, especially after my daughter was born, because at that point I was 42, so I was a little older and working, and we're all now, if you can help me that. And before acts of service, I was the one who liked doing the acts of service, but now I needed it, and I noticed when someone wouldn't help or they were not willing to help. That was hurtful. So it just changed it sometimes depending on the time of life. So if your love language changes and you're using these strategies with your partner, communicate that. I love physical touch, but you know what? I don't want physical touch if there's a whole sink full of dishes. That would really help me feel loved. Give people clues. about what's important to you. Ask your children, what do you wish that I would do that would make you feel loved? Ask those kinds of questions, and just don't get defensive if they give you an answer and you're not doing that, because that's just them trying to give you feedback on what will build that connection between the two of you.
What age would you think it would be to actually do the test to find out which one would be the best? So at what age?
So
5, 6?
according to Dr. Chapman, kids really don't kind of develop a full preference until they're around 4 or 5 years old. So as far as a test for kids, a lot of the tests that they have are more observations and you asking questions. Like there's a child survey, even saying things like, do you like when you find a card that said something great about you, or when I greet you with a bear hug? And you kind of take a notice of their little reactions. And then it actually even has a scoring thing that you can kind of do that. So it's a little bit more like you're a scientist with children if they can't take the online quiz. You can still take that online quiz and answer how you think they would answer. Isn't also a way that you can do that. But typically around, kindergarten or so, they're really starting to get some preferences. And that's where I want to make sure I'm not going to give up showing all the love languages. I'm just going to make sure I especially show their love style. So, but I will send you a copy of the little survey and stuff like that. That can be helpful.
We do have comments in the chat of
Okay.
people who are anxious to do this again with their children. It's been a little while, so
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I love the reminders for me too, because the first thing that goes for me is quality time. I'm too busy. I've got to do da. And for me, really making sure I'm purposeful, because my daughter's a quality time girl too. And so making sure I'm purposeful and not allowing myself to get too busy can be really helpful. Because you know what? It's almost like in with anything. I'm just gonna, even with great parenting, I could be thinking, oh, I'm gonna do the best, most effective communication. When I get busy and tired, I just revert back to how I've always done things. It can be the same thing if we kind of are so busy and we're not thinking about it. We can kind of go back to, well, I'm showing them love, but in my love language. So that's where I love people, that's why I like to take workshops and do workshops and teach workshops and attend workshops, because it just reminds me, it keeps you fresh to try things. And the book goes into a lot more detail that I think can be really a powerful thing. And I have not read the 5 Love Languages of Apology. And I just noticed on the website, there's something about a love language of anger. I have to figure that one out. I've never, and I work with angry children at school and run an anger management group. So I have to figure that one out for sure.
Well, that just means that we'll just have to bring you back.
Well, how about I read the book and then we're going to have a class on that one. That'll work. So Joni, I'll let you know, but I'm not going to have time to read until Christmas break for sure.
We can relate to that. So
yes, I'm sure.
We appreciate your time. In fact, I was just telling our intern, I think it would be awesome to actually do this session again, maybe over your lunch hour in February.
Yeah, that could be great.
Today would be kind of fun, because we were kind of disappointed in the number of it. We're so appreciative for everyone that's here, but yes. I think we might get a little bigger attendance if we did a lunch session. So we'll
absolutely, that's totally doable.
We'll have to try to do that. So, well, thank you for your time. Reminders, Jerry put in the chat a little information about CEUs. And then in addition to that, just a reminder that we'll be emailing you the survey tomorrow. So if you'll please, there's one general survey, and if everyone would please answer that. And then OFN will be sending one specifically for Lauren's session. And then Lauren will be sure and give you that feedback when we get those surveys back. So I hope you guys have a really good night. And Lauren, thank you again. Your sessions are always so appreciated. And I think all of us are taking away information that'll be really helpful, even for those of us who have adult children. I think it's really important. So
Always a pleasure to help. I'm a complete teacher nerd. So I right now, I just got my drug of choice. I have my teacher high right now. So it's a win-win for sure.
very good. Will you be careful driving home? And thanks again for your time. And we appreciate everyone coming tonight. And this concludes our retreat. We hope you've enjoyed your time. And I hope that when you fill out the survey, you'll give us good ideas, because truly what Lauren said, we listen and we watch your surveys. We take input from all of you in order to set up the agenda for the next year. And so on behalf of the Children's Behavioral Health Network and the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, we appreciate your time, and we're so glad that you came to spend some time with us tonight, and hope this was really helpful. So you guys take care.